Hey guys, so this is going to be the first video in a mini-series I'm doing for my impressions on the Carbon GT, and I decided to break out the videos like this because I know some of you are only concerned about certain aspects of the board. I'll still be doing a final review, but it won't go into as much detail as I'll be going into with these videos, so keep that in mind. So today I'm going to be talking about some things I do and don't like about the GT remote. For starters, one thing that gets most people, especially those that are coming from something like the booster board, is a really sensitive trigger. And the problem with this is that sometimes, depending on the mode you're in, and this is especially true for GT mode, the braking is really touchy. If you go too far or overcompensate when you think the board isn't braking or something like that, you can go flying off because the brakes will kick in at full force. So what I started doing is just using fast mode instead of GT mode all the time. And that's because the acceleration curve is a lot more friendly for just like basic commuting. You want to go quick, but you don't want to be using the full force of the board 100% of the time. And while that may seem counterintuitive, if you know the full power of this board, then you know you don't need it all the time. Before I got the board, I told people that I was going to be in GT mode 100% of the time, and that was because I thought it would be similar, at least in terms of handling, to the booster board, or at least vaguely similar. But what I found is that, like I've said earlier, it's really sensitive. The braking, it kicks in earlier than it does in fast mode, and it can make it difficult to use. So while I do like the extra power and the extra torque, it just isn't as easy to operate as it is in fast mode. So I feel like it isn't necessary. You save a bit of battery when you use fast mode more because the acceleration curve isn't as extreme and you're not using the full power of the board. And another big adjustment with this remote coming from the booster board is the lack of a dead man switch, which basically you have to hold it down and then engage the trigger with the booster board remote to get the motors going, whereas with the Evolve remote you just flick it and it goes. So you can see how that could be problematic. Say if you want to keep your remote on and walk into the store, you can't really do that because this is going to catch something if you have your board on still, and the board will go flying. What I do to mitigate this is obviously just turn my remote off. The good thing about it though is that you don't lose your trip meter data as long as your board is still on, and it takes a while for it to auto off, so I guess if you really wanted to keep that data there, you could just keep cycling it on every couple of minutes or so. Hopefully in future remote designs they do include it for safety reasons. And speaking of safety, one big lack of safety is the way the reverse is activated. You simply activate it by pressing this one button on the left, and you can see why this could be dangerous if you tend to hold your remote kind of like this while you're riding. It could accidentally slip, or pretty much just anywhere at any time you could just press that and it will go into reverse. But I guess the catch is that for instance, if it's out of red mode, say I'm going 2 miles per hour, I press the button, it's still going to remain going in acceleration until I re-engage, and then it starts going in the opposite direction. So you have a moment, if you notice that you press the button, which you probably don't, to reconsider and press it again and get it back to going forward. So that's a really big deal. A few people that I've seen online got messed up by accidentally pressing that button. I haven't personally. I hold my remote like this, kind of just holding onto this side and making sure I don't roll my fingers around here. I've also seen people put a piece of tape over it, but I don't think it's that extreme. It's just as long as you know that exists, you shouldn't have too many problems. So on to the things that I do like about the remote, and that's mainly just the LCD and all the data I can get from it. So for instance, one thing I use a lot is the trip meter, and this is especially useful if, say, you get a route from Google Maps that says the route is about like 8 miles. So say if I go like 10 miles and I'm still not at my destination, then I know that I'm probably on the wrong route. And also, if you like to share your rides with your friends, especially like booster board friends, they can only go about 4 miles at the moment. It's a lot of fun just kind of bragging how much range you get. Another thing I like is that the percentage is a number instead of just like a dot on the booster board remote that kind of just fades away mysteriously. One thing about it though is that it can be a little bit misleading because say if you're going uphill, it's going to fluctuate a bit because of voltage sag. You're putting out a lot of power, so it's going to go down. And if you're on a hill and you see it, you start off with 10%, see it go to 8 to 7 to 6 all the way down to like 1, then it's probably going to cut out if you keep going and it hits 0. And that's just again because of the voltage sag. That has happened to me once, but that was like when I first got the board because I didn't know about it. So just a heads up, putting out a lot of power, it's going to drain the battery faster. Another really cool thing about the GT remote is you don't have to stop, like come to a complete stop like you do with the booster board to change modes. You can kind of just keep riding and cycle through the modes. And the thing about the modes on the GT is that they really are like gears on a bike. Eco mode, it's really, really steady, very safe to use around other people. If you kind of throttle hard, it's not going to send the board flying. It's just going to gently take off. Fast mode, it's a little bit quicker, comparable to pro mode on the booster board, but still a bit faster. This is what I stay in the most because it's probably the safest. You still have nice strong braking for making sure you don't get run over. Car pulls out in front of you or something like that, but you can still get up towards max top speed. GT mode is what I recommend only using on hills. It is extremely satisfying using GT mode on hills, but on flats it is pretty terrifying, and downhill you're pretty much asking for it. So stay away from this for general usage. I say just because it's just really powerful, no matter what wheel setup you use pretty much, and especially if you use the 83mm wheels. If you're in GT mode all the time, my prayers are with you. So overall, even though the remote is still lacking a bit of refinement and safety features, like a dead man switch, I still found it pretty easy to use after I got used to it and learned more about it. For a lot of people, it's still going to be a bit of a deal breaker due to the lack of a dead man switch or the sensitive trigger, but I found ways around it to make it work for me, and it doesn't get in the way of my riding. So I'd just say try it out if you have the opportunity to and see how you like it. That's it for now. So stay tuned, more videos on the way.